Chapter 9. I haven't seen Robert in weeks. Maybe he didn't lie when he said he was on vacation. I found myself missing him more than Max. But how could that happen? Robert had women coming and going, and still I didn't judge him as harshly as I'm judging Max. Is it because Max is my husband, or I have some underlying reason in my subconscious I'm not ready to address? Is it possible I'm reacting because I'm jealous of the women being a part of Robert's life, and I'm not? Robert has managed to ignite feeling of envy, anger, and jealousy in me? Feelings I thought were dormant and ridiculous. I was up early having my morning breakfast because I had one class at 10 a.m. today, and one on Wednesday at 6 p.m. I hurried out because the doorman had called a taxi and the driver was waiting for me at the curb. I have to remember to contact Jonas today and ask him about the rumors surrounding Max concerning his club. Not that I expect the truth, but somewhere in Jonas's explanations I can peel away his lies and find some truth. Excited on my first day of class, I checked to see if I had everything I needed in my backpack. I dressed in worn jeans and white shirt and a pair of cheap sneakers. Somehow I was happy I didn't see that man who had me nervous whenever I was near him. Checking the time, I was early for class. I found the large lecture hall and sat in a seat in the back. As the hall began to fill, I looked at the schedule. Looking at the seats and the large number of students filing in, he must be good. Then out of nowhere my eyes locked on Melody's. She waved and headed up the stairs where I was sitting. "Can you believe this?" she said, breathing hard from running up the stairs. "No. Not on your life would I believe that I would ever see you again. I knew then, if we continued to sit together, that nothing would get done, and I can drop this class today, because I would fail the course because although I enjoyed her company, she was distracting with her continuous conversations." After dropping her backpack in a seat to her right, I placed mine to the left of me, then she sat next to me. "I hear the professor is a real hunk." I glanced at the schedule. "It's Dr. Healy's class." "He's 70, I said, looking at her a bit surprised. She can't find a 70-year-old man hot? Or can she? These days, nothing would surprise me or what turns some people on. "I know. He had a heart attack, and they called in this lawyer at the last minute for a favor. He's taking over Dr. Healy's class. By the discussion going around school, this guy is a handsome freak. He has fucked most of the women in this class, that is, everyone except me, and you, I guess." I raised my chin, bit my lip, shooting her a look of disbelief. "Serious, Alex? He's so rich and good-looking that women are dropping their panties for him in droves. But in some cases, the women aren't wearing anything but a thong, if that." "How do you know all of this?" "I eavesdrop on my mother when she's talking to her friends. Some of the women on Columbia's board, and they are heavy donors, and men too shoot the breeze with my mother, that is, they gossip. They tell her everything that's going on around here. I guess old women just like to gossip about young men because they aren't getting any. It's not just old women. Some young women are having the same problem." I shot her a look and raised eyebrow, but her expression never changed. "And listening to all the womanizing this professor is doing, I don't want to be caught dead in his bed," I said to Melody. "Me. I'd like to find out what turns him on. Anytime you see a man with that many women, someone isn't doing the job right or giving him what he likes. I wonder if he likes a little BDSM. I'd like to whip his ass sometime." "Oh, Melody," I said, closing my eyes for a second. "Straight up, I would do it in a fast second. And suck his dick, and let him fuck me here, there, and everywhere." "Get out of here," I said, smiling, pushing her shoulder. Oh my God, I can't believe what I'm hearing. I began to laugh, because I couldn't believe anyone was that free to express herself so open. I gazed at the students sitting in the next two seats, wondering if they had heard her. A female student sat texting, and appeared to be in her own world, and the guy next to her, he had a conversation going on with his mother. I've had an open mind since I met and married Max. I had forgotten how 20-something women talked among themselves. I'm dead serious, Alex. I would use a dildo on him in a minute if he was into that. No. Yes. In a second. Then I would let him eat me out and see what kind of skills he had, and if they were lacking, then I would teach him how to satisfy me. You can't have a man going down on you and doing all kinds of nasty stuff if he has no skills. You can get hurt. Why a girlfriend had her clit bit off just because her boyfriend didn't have a clue, and he didn't know that it was attached to her. Come to find out, she was his first and last. Word got around, and neither one could get a date. So they had to stay together, Melody said, hunching her shoulders. No. I don't believe you. Well, it makes a good story anyway. And why ruin a good story with the truth? She glanced at me with a grin and took a drink of her Diet Coke from a straw, the sound making a loud, annoying noise. Then she opened the top of the cup and reached in and took out a small ice cube. Turning to me, holding it, waving it around, before plopping it into her mouth, she said, "You know these are good for making love." No, I didn't know. What you could do with these, she said, cracking one cube with her teeth. My boyfriend put these on my... I get the picture, I said, conveniently interrupting her. Okay. Don't call me up and ask me how to use them because you had your chance. I think I may have hurt her feelings. Melody became quiet and opened a book and pretended she was reading it. She must have taken me for a prude and thought I needed a lesson on how to get an orgasm. All I needed to do was ask her a question, and she started again. Melody's banter on the joys and power of lovemaking made the half-hour pass quickly. I glanced down at my phone for the time, and in walked, and from where we sat in the cheap seats, I had to put my glasses on to see him. I could see he was tall, with a full head of brilliant dark hair. The kind you want to run your hands through, as he is ravishing your breasts or going down on you. The "just fucked, I don't care, I want you to know I fucked" hair appeared awfully familiar. He stood behind his computer, gazing at the crowd. When he spoke, I knew that voice. I'm passing around the roster, please sign it. If you don't, I will assume that you didn't show up for class, and as you can see it is very large, and I will be very busy. He'll be busy all right, fondling someone's ass, Melody whispered, leaning close to my ear. If any of you are planning on dropping out, I suggest you do it now. No one stood. They turned, looking at the next guy, and remained in their seats. Then his eyes focused on me, and for the life of me, I couldn't tell how he knew I was there, but he said, "Mrs. Blackstone, I need to see you after class." And then I remembered he would have a list of all the students in the class. Dr. Healy's syllabus is on my class website. I suggest you download it and follow it to the letter. Melody grabbed my leg and whispered, "Oh, he has you in his sights. He's good. I bet he knows everyone he has fucked in here, and you aren't one of them." I still wasn't sure it was him because of the way he was dressed. He wore a plain white shirt and jeans. But then, "My name is Professor Montgomery. You will get my syllabus tomorrow in your email box." 2 syllabi. Melody questioned. I don't know. This is going to be harder than I thought. I leaned over and whispered to Melody, "He lives in my building. I see him every day." Well, it shouldn't be a problem. You don't have to go far to fuck him. You are going to fuck him, aren't you? I wouldn't fuck him if he wore 2 rubbers. That's what they all say. Look at that body, that hair and lips. You can see his lips from here. You can't have a face and body like that without having lips you want to bite and suck all day. I just imagine he is something in bed. Make sure you tell me about it when you do it with him. You are going to fuck him? She glanced my way for an answer or something that would reveal my intentions. Think about our grades. I have to pass this class or else my parents will take away my allowance. Take one for the team. My eyes swung in her direction. Melody hunched her shoulders, talking too much to my father, so sue me, she said, grinning. Since when did this become our grades? I thought. The word hour reminded me to call Jonas. Robert lectured the entire 2 hours, which included a PowerPoint presentation. And then class was over and it was time. I'm not going to see him, I whispered to Melody. But why? You don't understand, Melody, and I don't have time to tell you, I said, standing and picking up my backpack and draping it over one shoulder. I have to get home to my boys. Good idea. He's going to his office and expecting you there. This will make him want you more, Melody said as if she was hatching a plan. We'll just slip out and you can go home. Do you need a ride? No thanks, I can find my way. I'll just take a cab. Chapter 10. I made it home about 1:30. My lunch was setting out waiting for me. A chicken salad sandwich. I wasn't hungry. I needed to talk to Max. I checked his room, not expecting him to be there, and he wasn't. I agreed to live with him, hoping things would return to normal, but it didn't. He was just there to be around the boys and stop me from having another life. He was the only one benefiting from this arrangement. I must have been out of my mind to think this would work. I really needed to talk to Max because my life was spiraling out of control. The life I wanted with him, my desire for him, was fading the more I thought of Robert. I remembered when all I wanted was to be with Max and for us to live as a family, but even that isn't working. I better try Jonas. Maybe he has heard from him, I murmured to myself. May I speak with Jonas Blackstone? He's not here. A man's coarse voice answered, throwing me for a loop. Most times Jonas would answer, because he expected a call from Crystal, and she should be having her baby about now. Well, when will he be available? I don't know, maybe never. And he hung up. What is going on with Jonas now? I hope he didn't get himself in trouble again, but wait, this is Jonas and he's always in trouble. That's his middle name, Jonas Trouble Blackstone. This didn't sound too good. I decided to call Max at his office instead of texting him. Max, I've been calling you and calling. I know, but I am in negotiations now. Max didn't sound like himself. As a matter of fact, he sounded more like Jonas. Jonas? Is that you? Alex, how did you know? Never mind that, I said. Have you seen Max? Something terrible has happened. What? I shook my head and slumped into the chair near my bed. What now? I'm coming over there. Why? And the phone went blank. I would have to sit around and wait on Jonas to find out what happened to Max. I couldn't sit still. I walked and walked, cried, and paced the room waiting to hear from Jonas. An hour passed, and finally the doorman buzzed and I ran to get the message. He announced that I had a visitor. Let him in, I said, not asking who he was. I waited until I heard the door to the elevator, then I opened the door, and standing in front of me was Jonas. He had a look on his face of a sad little boy. Jonas always wore that expression, especially when he had done something to cause Max a problem, and that happened all the time in San Francisco. But this look was different. I had never seen such a look of despair on his face. He rushed past me and reached for a bottle of scotch from the liquor cabinet, and downed half a glass with no ice. I glanced at him. "Haven't you kept me waiting long enough to hear about Max?" I just knew he would tell me that Max had left me for another woman, or something close to that. I held my breath hoping it wasn't that, but it was much worse. I could tell by the look on Jonas's face. "I think Max has been kidnapped." I went to his office to discuss my business and ask him for help. I stayed there in his office until today when you called. My breathing ceased and I sucked in air. I wandered aimless to the liquor cabinet and poured myself a drink. I sat with the glass in my hand. "Why do you think this?" I asked. "Max has 2 bodyguards and a chuffer. There is no way this can happen. And no one knows about me and the children except you. I hope you haven't put my children in jeopardy," I said, staring up at Jonas, his face usually an open book, but for some reason I couldn't figure him out. His face blank. Was this his soldier's expression during interrogation, a planned effort to conceal information from the enemy? He managed to survive his combat mission after his company had been destroyed. What was behind the mask of good-natured Jonas he so easily revealed some days, and on other days a paradox? "I think Max can take care of himself. There is no way anyone can get to him." I glanced at Jonas with a raised eyebrow, but if they thought he was me then? Jonas said, trying to concede something, before I interrupted him. "Why would someone think he was you? Is there something you're keeping from me?" I questioned, my eyes narrowing. Jonas had begun to fidget with his hands, then he stood and paced around the room, taking time to look aimlessly through the panoramic window. "Do you have a cigarette?" he said with his back to me, still facing the window. Now I knew something was up with him. He stopped smoking cigarettes when he kicked his drug habit and alcohol habit. Now he's drinking and smoking. This could be serious. I rushed over to him and took the empty glass from his hand. "Tell me, Jonas. What did you do?" I shouted, my heart bursting through my chest. I had to hold my body to keep from trembling. I realized then that without Max, I didn't want to go on. What would life be without him? Without Max, I have nothing. Tears pooled in my eyes and all the breath flowed out and I felt lightheaded. I held on to the chair, breathing hard. Jonas walked around the room in a circle and came back to stand in front of me. "Stop shaking your hands," I shouted, my voice weak between tears. "Now tell me and don't leave anything out." He sat near me. I didn't want him anywhere close to me, especially at times like these. He tried to stop his feet from shaking and his hands, but he was losing the battle. I asked Max to come to my office because I wanted to discuss a financial matter with him. I had to step out and he was waiting for me. By the time I returned, he was gone. I think he was mistaken for me and kidnapped. Why would anyone want to do this? He glanced at me. I think it's because of you. Silence blanketed the room. We sat staring at each other. I didn't want to ask, I was afraid to ask. I wanted to run and hide in my bedroom and not come out. I didn't want this life anymore, I wanted another life. A life that was quiet. I should have stayed in Montana with Max. I had to come to New York. Now I don't have Max. I went through a slew of regrets until I heard a key in the door. I grabbed Jonas's hand and held it tight. We were both afraid. There, standing in front of me dressed all in black, was Maximilian Blackstone, smiling. "Well, what's going on, Mrs. Blackstone? Did you miss me so much that you had to take up with this cardboard copy of me?" he asked, smiling, and Jonas rushed to his brother and held him tight, as if he didn't want to let him go. "I love you too, Jonas," Max said, pulling away from Jonas's grip and making his way to me. "What's the matter, baby? You act as if you have seen a ghost." Jonas and I glanced at each other. "Max, I'm ready to leave New York when you are. This minute, if possible." "Hold your horses, baby. There are a few more things I have to get in order, and we can go home." Max glanced down at me, holding on to him for dear life. By the look on his face, he didn't know what to make of my sudden change. But he knew when he had won, and he wasn't going to push it by asking questions. "Alex." Jonas and I tucked away another one of our conspiracies and secrets. We didn't talk about it with Max. What good would it do? Although Jonas was wrong about the kidnapping, there was something simmering below, and it had to do with me. For now, I just didn't want to know about it or think about it. Max promised me that we could leave New York soon. I thought that would be my salvation. Get away, go back to Montana where all this started, and make a fresh start. I've been depressed every day, and needing him. Max has been away from us for weeks. He's flying in today, and he's taking the boys out, and he said he was bringing a friend. I've seen him more now than in the last year, and he spends more time with the children. We're having vanilla sex, as Max describes, and it is extremely hot for me. Max takes the time to bring me flowers and candy, aside from all the expensive gifts he forces on me. I hope this is enough for him. But deep down, I hope it is enough for me. I don't think about Robert as I used to. He is standing in the way of my love for Max. Once Max said we would be leaving to go back to Montana, I canceled my classes. I will miss Melody, she was the brightest thing about being in New York. I'll have to get in touch with her and explain. Knowing Melody, it shouldn't be that hard to contact her, considering everyone's life is plastered all over social media sites. And she is probably the type to have all her pictures and information on Instagram and Twitter. Max will be here at 11 a.m. He's taking the children to the Christmas show at Radio City Music Hall, and they're all excited. 2 weeks ago, he took them to the zoo, and they couldn't stop their little chatter about the animals. The children are dressed and waiting with Lapita. I swiped lip gloss on my lips and threw on a dress with a V-cut neckline, and my Christian Louboutin, the ones with the red heels. I like to tease him when he comes home after being away. That's his punishment, that and vanilla sex, and a marriage counselor. I wonder what he would do to me if he ever found out my indiscretions. I'm not going to think about that anymore. I'm going to put an end to this today, and hopefully bury that body so deep no one can dig it up. I hear the buzzer, and Lapita rushes for the door. I hear the children's little voices. They are screaming, "Daddy! Daddy!" I rush out and stop in my tracks. My expression changes. "Alex, this is my good friend Robert." I turn chalky, my hands are sweaty. "It's nice to make your acquaintance, Mrs. Blackstone." I look at him, my eyes gloss over, I'm in a daze. My worst nightmare. It's him standing in my house with a white pullover under a midnight blue leather jacket, and dark blue wool slacks hugging his sculptured hips. I can't tell which one is more handsome than the other, Max or Robert. Seeing them together is mesmerizing. Downright scary. And I'm hot for both, and they are hot for me. I can see it in their eyes, and they are both blind, because they think that my smile is for only one of them. Max is standing dressed in a black silk shirt opened at the collar, and a black coat and silk and wool black pants. Robert came along to help me with my boys. I'm thinking, he came along to help you with more than just our boys. It's a pleasure to meet you, Robert. Where did you meet my husband? I never heard him talk about you. I didn't extend my hand. My cheeks were red and my hand sweaty. I couldn't handle the telltale sign of arousal, the sign of want and need. The children were pulling Max's hand and ready to go. We have to leave now. Robert, take them out, I need to speak to my wife. Max's words and smile innocent yet taunting for Robert. He reacted, and I knew immediately his feelings. Robert gave a quick nod, never answering my question, and appeared to be relieved that he didn't have to answer it. He hurried into the foyer with the children, holding my baby Jack in his arms. Alex, you look so lovely, Max whispers with his nose trailing down my neck heading for my breasts. Max stood gazing at me, as if he could pull me to the floor and take me there. Then he realized that we are not alone. There is a function I need to attend. Please say you will accompany me. It's on Saturday. My eyes shut tight. It's for a special cause. You said that I didn't take you anywhere. And he smiled his half-crooked smile, with dimples digging into the sides of his face. That was before. He stopped me. How many times can I say I'm sorry? I'll agree if you go with me to a marriage counselor, I said to him. He held my hand, and I walked him to the door. Robert turned stark steel blue eyes covering me. I pulled back away from Max. It was as if I was betraying Robert with Max. We aren't having an affair, so why am I feeling as if something is going on between us, I asked myself. I have to stop this. I have to get my marriage back on track. Max grabbed my hand and held it to his mouth and said with his brooding eyes looking down at me, anything. Anything you want, I'll do it. I can't imagine losing you. I don't know what I would do. Then his face changed and he gave me a faint smile. He held the door and was ready to leave when he turned and said, Don't forget, Alex, it's a black tie affair. Wear your most expensive gown and jewels. Oh, I forgot, he said, putting his fingers to his forehead. Robert will accompany us. Robert spends his days and nights working for my company and hasn't had time to meet anyone. I gave him an apartment in this building as part of his package, a signing bonus. That's old news. Did Robert think I was part of the package? I couldn't help adding that to my thoughts as I gazed quietly at Robert, playing with my children. He's going to take over my companies and run them from New York, so I can devote more time to you. We can go back to Montana, and I don't have to take time away from you and the boys. I hadn't seen Max that happy in years, however, I haven't been this miserable in years. Now that I'm trying to rid myself of Robert, he managed to cajole and scheme to get into our lives. Max kissed me lightly on my lips and whispered in my ear, When I come back, I'm going to tie you up and crawl between those beautiful alluring legs and never come up for air. Maybe Max took too long saying goodbye to me because Robert turned, saw me blush red, and he regarded me with his blue eyes, and when Robert handed Max our baby, Max turned his back, and Robert, facing me, shot me an icy, wicked smile and a scandalous wink. It wasn't too extreme in thinking that Robert had a jealous nature, and he was indeed jealous of my relationship and marriage to Max. I recognized that in him, but I wasn't a jealous person, and I don't know the nature of a jealous man, but I hear it can be deadly.